Greetings, I, Tentus Van Dracovin, your Lord Emperor, here in the Dracovin Empire, and welcome one and all, especially to you folks over on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. Hey, everybody. People over in Twitch this now. Maybe, maybe not. But if you're joining me later live, thank you for joining me live. If you're joining me over on YouTube, please appease the great and powerful dark algorithm and, like, subscribe, ring the bell, and all that kind of stuff. My question to all of you out there today, though, is, hey, if any of you played a Triaxian, or their Starfinder equivalent, Ryphorians. Because they're kind of the same thing, but also kind of not, which is weird. They have a different name depending on the thing, and we'll talk about that a little bit today. Because that's our topic. We're diving into a species which does show up on Golarion occasionally, but is really from another planet. Science fiction is great, and I do love science fantasy, too, sometimes. That's why I love Shadow. But yes, the Triaxians show up in Starfinder, which is very sci-fi / sci-fantasy. But called something else. Anyway, books. Books that I can suggest if you want to look into this more. Let's start with that. It's always my favorite place to go into. And, of course, The Reign of Winter, The Frozen Stars is a good place to start. That kind of introduces them. You can see that guy over there, that's a Triaxian. Also, the People of the Stars, talk about them in their home planet. There you go. Those are the books. Here's a good picture of a Triaxian. So who are they? Well, they are the most popular species on the planet Triaxis, which is the 7th planet in Golarion's solar system. The nature of its orbit causes it to have centuries-long winters and summers. As the average lifespan of a Triaxian is about 80 years, those who remain on their homeworld will know nothing except one long winter or one long summer. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing. And they'll have history about that. They'll know their their changes and stuff like that. Physically, they resemble many other humanoids that are on Golarion. Humans and elves, they kind of look a little bit like them. Have something a little different. But Triaxians have developed certain adaptations to their strange world's environments that make them quite alien. Yes, Starfinder is set in the distant future of the Pathfinder world, and they're coming out with a 2nd edition. That's probably going to be more based on the 2nd edition Pathfinder very soon. So, if you want to wait for that, it's going to be updated to the newer kind of rule set they've been working on. But it is it's very... Maybe it's interesting because it's very science fantasy. Like, it is high-tech sci-fi, but it's also like magic and still divine powers and stuff like that. It's just, what if your classic fantasy world went to like Star Trek, Star Wars level of future? Yeah. So, Triaxian, what do they look like? Well, unlike the cultures that make up the humans of Golarion, the Triaxian populations vary in size, height, weight, and other strong physical characteristics depending on the region they call home. Most are about 6 feet tall and more lean in comparison to humans of the same height. It's rare to see a Triaxian over 200 pounds. They have very elongated ears akin to elves, and unlike elves, these appendages are notched in combined and big feathery pattern. These notches create small flaps in the ears that seem to constantly move or adjust to listen to sounds, allowing to focus on sounds much like an animal of similar ears. Now, the most important thing to talk about then is seasonal variation. And this is something that we see in their Starfinder side a lot more, which we'll be talking about a little bit. Like many creatures that make up their homeworld, the Triaxians have evolved to shift with the seasons. Remember, I said, the seasons are centuries long, and their lifespans are only about 80 years. Meaning, yes, some of them will be there for the winter to summer switch, but there will be those that are just there for one or the other. The adaptation creates many differences in the generations of the same family line that could seem very strange to Golarion humans. They differ significantly depending on the season which they're born. The dark-skinned, wide-eyed Triaxians born in summer phases are called summerborn, while those born in winter have white fur and light-shielding narrow eyes called winterborn. Yeah, that kind of looks like that. And this is a winterborn Triaxian, because during the current timeline of Golarion / Pathfinder / their universe, it's a winter season. Those born away from Traxius, regardless of environment of their birthplace, take the adaptations of their ancestral world's current seasons. And because it's seasonal and on a cycle, they basically have that built into their DNA to be born on that cycle, interestingly enough. There are Traxians born during the relatively brief intermission between the long seasons as transitional Triaxians. They don't have any of the adaptations, and many are particularly well attuned to weather patterns, even on worlds other than Traxxas. So there are some ones that are kind of in the middle, that don't have like the fur of the winter ones, or the darker skin to adapt to like the hot summer times. You know, they're kind of in the middle. There are another variant that we can talk about, because there's a lot of draconic creatures on Triaxian. There are some dragon-blooded Triaxians. So, a lot of draconic creatures there. It has intermingled with their bloodline. Just a little bit there. Just a little bit there. And to show that off, I'll have my last image for the day. Some Triaxians dueling on Dragonback, which is kind of cool. So, along with the biological adaptations that they have, their society changes with and adapts to the seasons. Their lifestyles means that a few Summerborns are alive for winter and vice versa, and they know each other primarily through folklore. Summerborn are cavalier and restless, Winterborn treasure honor and trust. But, you know, so they do have a little bit of natural attitude differences, and culturally. And, you know, so, like, there'll be a Summerborn during winter when the Winterborns are being there, you know, with their lifespan, they're like, a little different, but they're there that with that. Traxian Druids are season keepers, who use the intense seasons of their homeworld to help the communities prepare for the coming changes in the seasons. They have their own language called Triaxian or Traxian Common. It's trade language spoken by many more creatures than just Triaxian humanoids on their homeland. And Draconic is widely spoken and understood on the planet. There we go. Now let's talk about the Ryphorians just a little bit. I've talked about the Ryphorians in one of my Starfinder videos, but I do have to talk about it there because these are the version of the Triaxians. Remember, they're named Triaxians after their homeworld, Triaxis. But they aren't the only species there, so I think more appropriately, their species name is Ryphorian. So I will put both in the title, so you keep that in mind. The big thing here about the Triaxians, or the Ryphorians, is by the time we get to the Starfinder timeline, because it's deep in the future, they have hormonal treatments that they can basically change their appearance, not dependent on Triaxis seasons. So, it's actually one of those things it's a sign of wealth and status in some of the cultures if you can be, like, whatever season it is, the different, like, it's winter, I'm going to appear as a Summerborn, So, yeah, basically, or transitional or something like that, So it is something that they can alter their forms nowadays. Hey, we've reached that technology deep in the future where there's star travel and stuff like that. They're not just put into that, but they are adapted to that. And especially when they leave their home planet, it might be good for them to change their form, Hey, I'm not going to be on my endless winter in Triaxis that's going on right now. I'm maybe going to a planet that's really hot and summery. Maybe I want to, and I can afford it because I'm a space traveler. Maybe I want to get that hormonal treatment and transition to a Summerborn, so I'm ready for it. I know I'm going somewhere hot. I can be ready for it. I won't get into their history in Starfinder because that's a thing, but it is interesting to see that they have that connection with the culture, and they do have a different name, So, yeah. But that's the Traxians or Ryphorians, whichever one you really want to call them. And they are interesting people. And yes, they aren't a people that is very common to Golarion. So keep that in mind. There are people that doesn't mean they can't show up in Golarion, because there is magical travel between the worlds in the time of Pathfinder. You know, we don't have to go deep into the future in Starfinder to have people travel between the planets. During this time period, planar magics do exist. Granted, Golarion is not 100% shut off, but more shut off than some of the other planets. So, you know, the other planets in the solar system are more connected with magic and are more aware of each other and the people there. So, yeah. Like, it's an adventure, part of a bigger adventure path, that takes you to Triaxian to meet these people during their winter. You know? So, yeah. That's why they're encountered in one of the Pathfinder adventures. But... And again, they're interesting people because I like when we see versions of the people that are both in Starfinder and Pathfinder sometimes. It connects those two systems together a little bit more, and we can kind of see how these people evolve, much similar to how people evolve in the Starfinder system from Golarion, from the homeworld there, and stuff like that. And these are very interesting people because they have such a alien, you know, dimorphism, that it's whatever season you're born in, whether it's one of the rare small transition periods or the centuries-long summers and winters, you are one of those things. You know, it's a planet with a really interesting set of circumstances where the entire environment adapts to that. It's ready for centuries of winter. It's ready for centuries of summer. There's probably, you know, the plants there that are like the trees there are probably like, you know, adapted to things. The plants there are adapted to things. A lot of stuff is just adapting to things in very interesting ways. Trax is just such an interesting planet that a lot of the Pathfinder planets are. I think I've talked about them a little bit, but yeah. Anyway, I'll leave it there. I think I've kind of dived into them enough for today, and I hope you enjoyed learning about them. Yeah. They're definitely a species that isn't outside the realm of possibility to play, especially Pathfinder First Edition. I don't know if we've seen anything for Second Edition yet. I don't think we have. But they are an unusual one to still pick up. Not impossible, but, you know, maybe someone's made an adaptation for Second Edition. Or maybe you want to wait for the Ryphorians to be in the Starfinder Second Edition. They probably could be pretty adapted between the two. It should be a really similar system, if not the exact same. Just saying. If you want to check out more of my stuff, if you want to see my tabletop stuff live, up on Twitch, it's Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays. You know, usually mid-afternoon to a little liner. Exactly. I do Crimson Queen on Wednesdays in the evening, 9 p.m. Pathfinder First Edition live play, and discuss tabletop on Saturdays. I have social media link below. I think that's all the main shoutouts. I do other streams if you want to check those out, but everything tabletop goes up on YouTube, so you don't have to go check out the streams if you don't want. I'd love for you to drop in if you can. But at least, you know, go check out some other stuff. That also helps with the dark powers of the algorithm to check out some of the other stuff I do. Just saying. Anyway, I'm gonna be going for now. Probably hang out with some Twitch people a little longer, but for you guys on YouTube, I bid all of you out there adieu and wonderful farewell.